Welcome one and all, as always, to Football Pass. And as always, we are ready and willing to get our teeth into the big stories of the day. And there are none bigger at the moment, certainly in Scottish football, than the impending Old Firm. A 16-point gap that will either stretch or condense, depending on the result at Ibrox this weekend. It feels like something like a decisive game. I was going to say a title decider. It's perhaps a bit early for that, but we'll find out whether it is or it isn't in the company of two men who know full well what it's like to be in the heat of the cauldron. Alec McLeish and Gordon Strachan. Who better to chew the fat with on this and other topics than these two gentlemen? Welcome both again. Gordon, first of all, from a Celtic point of view, must win?
Must they get beat? I actually think because it could be disappointing for Rangers, who are playing unbelievably well over the last 4 months. Because I think they'll be hoping to put it to bed and win the game. So I don't think that if they don't win the game, I think that could be a big disappointment. And people will say, yeah, okay, it's a draw, we're still in the same position. But the fact is, I think Celtic will grow from that if they get a draw. They could possibly win the way they're playing just now. But I think not to get beat would be my first thing as a manager when I'm going there tomorrow. Obviously, you want to win, but not to get beat first is the main thing. And I think at the end of it, I was speaking to somebody the other day, they're saying, well, I think if Celtic are about 4 points behind Rangers at the end of March, something like that, then it's game on still. As Alec knows, it's game on at that point, because the more they can claw back, the worse it gets for a manager. Alec myself been there as managers with big leads, and it suddenly starts getting whittled away, and you're like, oh no, am I going to be the manager? Am I going to be the player? Am I going to be the captain that throws away this big lead? That can sometimes come with that big league thing.
Yeah, and Alec, there's a slightly different dynamic, obviously, because Celtic have been used to being the runaway leader and Rangers the chaser, and roles now reversed. That psychologically can have an effect, no?
Yeah, I do think Rangers are in a better state mentally than they have been in the last couple of seasons. When they started to drop a lot of points after the new year. I think there was a New Year break in those last 2 years, and they seem to come back a little bit, lacking a wee bit of the sharpness. And Celtic just steamrolled everybody else and created a massive gap in the points. And Rangers were only having draws against the smaller teams, Ross County, Hamilton, that kind of result. But this time they have actually taken care of those results, and albeit it was a very close 1-0 victory against Hibs last week, but you could see that they've got a kind of steel now that perhaps they didn't have in the last couple of years. Celtic are in a great run of form, as we know. Neil Lennon has brought them back. Credit to Neil for that. And they're playing well. The Celtic game at Celtic Park early in the season, for me, the Celtic, they always have to try and win in their own ground. And they were a bit open that day, and Rangers did a number on them. So it'll be interesting to see the tactics. Will Celtic really go for it? As Gordon said, a draw would probably be okay for both teams, I would think. But Celtic, if they go all out to try and beat Rangers, then again Rangers could pick them off the way they did at Celtic Park.
Yeah. Have Celtic turned a corner, Gordon, in the last, 4 or 5, half a dozen games?
Oh, I think if you're a Celtic supporter, the end of this month compared to the end of last month, then the world's a different place. I know that for the fact it's a different place in the training ground, that's for sure. But just to go back to what I was saying earlier, that I don't think Celtic will play for a draw. They'll go for a win. It's the way they set up, it's the way they play, it's the way Lennon plays. And I think if anybody sussed anything else out, sniffed that, then I think Rangers would enjoy that, because they could sniff a fear about Celtic if they feel they're just playing for their draw, and allow Rangers to get into their own rhythm. And they've got a fantastic rhythm at the moment and a good style of playing. It's got to be, the game will be decided in the middle of the park. in the middle of the park, there's so many good players in there. And people will say we decided with the fullbacks of Rangers, who've been magnificent, or is it Frimpong, Laxalt? But the fact is that you need the ball to be effective. If you don't have the ball, then you have a problem. If you're winning more good ball in the middle of the park, then you can send your fullbacks away. Now, when I say good possession, I don't mean possession along the back four, which means nothing. I'm talking about the middle of the park where you win, and it doesn't have to be interceptions. It could be bouncing balls, winning headers. You make sure you win it in there. If you win it, then you can send your fullbacks away or linemen away, whatever you want. So it's going to be very important in there. It's like most sports, like rugby. You go in there, you can't have any attacks without the ball. It has to be won. So I think it's so important there. And Celtic have got to decide what system they've got to play. They played with a diamond the other night there against Dundee United, and I thought that's probably the best they've played all season. And that diamond was good because they had a sitting midfield playing the Sorrow. But at the sides, there was Christie and McGregor, who have both got great legs. And if they don't win the ball in the middle of the park, they will be probably the first to engage the fullbacks, the Rangers. But they're fit enough and clever enough to go out there and engage them. When I say clever enough, some people just run out there and give them a sell up. They're clever enough to push. McGregor and Christie know where to push players into areas where they're not as effective. So the big thing for me would be the middle of the park. And you don't want to be outnumbered in the middle of the park.
No. And Alec, that would be, if Celtic went with a diamond, that would be a very positive, very brave move. You have to be, as Gordon says, ultra fit, don't you? And Rangers might quite like kind of, even at home, sitting in a little bit and playing on the counter. They've been very good at that this season.
Yeah, they have. But as you know, with Rangers and Celtic, there's an expectancy that when they're in the home ground, they have to go for it every game. Probably the only ones you wouldn't totally go for it would be Champions League games or European games. But when you're playing your fiercest rivals, then there's an expectancy that you go at them hammer and tongs. But of course, we know that there's got to be tactical strategies from both teams. Celtic playing with the diamond, does that give the Rangers wing backs, license to go forward? But as Gordon knows, these strikers, midfielders Christie and McGregor can easily slide out to try and thwart the runs forward of fullbacks. They're intelligent enough players to do that. But St Mirren beat Rangers a few weeks ago was obviously a bit of a shock. But what the St Mirren did was they did a number on this wing backs, and that. It'd be interesting if Celtic are going to make that a priority or not, or just do what they normally do, the good run that they're on again, and the confidence that's possibly come back into the team. Edouard and Griffiths forming a partnership, then there's a bit of confidence about Celtic Park again.
Yeah, there are now goal scorers, obviously, at both ends of the pitch coming into in very good form. Are they not, Gordon? You've obviously got Morelos now starting to find his scoring boots, Kemar Roof, and as mentioned, you got Griffiths and Edouard starting to really hit their straps at the other end. So it doesn't feel like a 0-0.
No, going back to what Alex said, I'll come back to that. As I said, that Rangers done a fantastic. They were great at Celtic Park because they left Celtic with the ball until the halfway line, and they put all the onus and they pushed the ball to one side in particular. And even when it went to one side in particular, they pressed to make sure the ball only went one way. So that was, and they can actually do that again at Ibrox because there's no crowd there. As you know, when there's a crowd there, the whole crowd wouldn't settle for that. They're not getting to them. But I think because there's no crowd, you can actually be more. There's more tactical nuance about the way you want to defend and play. So that's interesting. That's an interesting fact of the game. Whether Rangers go back and do exactly what they did at Celtic Park. getting back to the strikers, yes, Kamaru, I know about Kamaru being at Leeds and things like that. I think he played slightly to the left the other night there. Morelos and Hadji there. So it's a shame that Kent and these people have been playing. But as I say, but Kent's the number one player, in Scotland just now, the way he plays. But going back to Edouard and Griffiths, and Alex was quite rightly talking about how Celtic did well at the end of last year and won the league. And that was because Edouard and Griffiths played together. And I said this at the beginning of the season about what you're missing. I said, you're missing Griffiths playing with Edouard. Edouard's not the same player without Griffiths. And I tried to explain that Edouard is a Bergkamp. And we'll know what Bergkamp is. He goes there. He was never a number 9. He wasn't an out-and-out striker. He was a footballing genius. I'm not saying Edouard's as good as him, but he likes to play in that role. So if you could imagine Bergkamp and Wright, you've got the similar sort of thing here now with Griffiths and Edouard. And Griffiths likes to play with somebody around him, and so does Edouard. So if you look at it, it's coincided with Griff and Edouard playing again together. And that's the same run last year. It was when they two played together. It wasn't a tactical brilliance. It was they two were playing together, and you fill it in with good players. So I think that's what's happened now. So you have a system that works for Celtic. It's proved it's worked with it. That, that great run at the end of last year, plus the run they're on now, is a coincidence. Is it coincidence that Edouard and Griffiths are playing together? No, it is. No, it isn't. It's the fact that they are good players and both like playing with each other. A wee bit different on the other side. It's like one main one and two come off the side, which is interesting. But again, how much of the ball they got to get? It's about that bit in the middle of the park and who can intercept, who can counter attack.
Yeah, and those you keep coming back. You feel, Alec, to those Rangers wing backs, particularly Tavernier, who's having the season of his life in terms of assists and goals. He's such a threat.
Incredible. The number of goals he's getting, not only from the penalty spot, which a big bulk of them were last season. He's getting up there, he's putting headers in, he's scoring on rebounds. It's quite frightening. The interesting thing about Celtic with the front two, Celtic, if Rangers do go the gung-ho wing-backs tactics, then possibly these are areas where Griffiths and Edouard can float into, and these are two intelligent strikers that Edouard is still a boy, he's still learning, but Griffiths is very intelligent and as a footballer and knows the positions to take up if perhaps some Rangers defenders are maybe going on the attack, and he'll know where to go when Celtic counter that and get the ball quickly to him in positions where he'll exploit the space that Rangers leave.
Is it over if Rangers take the 3 points, Gordon? I know I'm obviously looking for a tabloid headline, it seems here, but it's a fair question, isn't it?
Well, I was talking the other day, Mr. McGee, and it was a big song and dance. And Mr. McGee remembered me that his Motherwell team beat my team with 9 games to go to leave them 7 points behind. And we had to play Rangers twice. And that was it looked impossible. So I don't think anything is ever impossible, but it makes it very improbable if you don't get a result on Saturday, I think it is. We're lost with times. What, Saturday or Sunday? I don't know what it is. Saturday. So it'll be very, very hard indeed. And it'll be a huge psychological blow for Celtic. Now, whether they can come back for the blows they had a month ago when they played Rangers, it took them a wee while to get over it. They're back now, so another defeat. You wonder how psychologically it work against Celtic. But at the moment, I've got to say that it's the best I've seen Celtic playing in months. So they've timed it just right, and it's got to be a smashing game. I think it'll be a great game, far better than the first one we've seen. The first one was hugely disappointing, apart from being a Rangers supporter. But from a spectacle, it was a real poor game. That's not going to happen again, that's for sure. But going back to what you're saying about the fullbacks getting on, they're not wing backs, there's fullbacks that get right up there. Celtic will have that. Celtic will just drop a striker back into midfield, and the two, McGregor and Christie, if they're playing, will just go a wee bit wider to look after them. But again, it's all down to players. All the plans we used to put at Old Firms It was all down to somebody making a mistake or somebody scoring a great goal. It was very rarely we sit back and go, wow, weren't our tactics great? It's all decided by somebody making a horrendous mistake or somebody scoring great goals.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The managers obviously scratch their heads and hope to influence games, but sometimes it's more often than not down to players. But it was also traditionally down to supporters, particularly in these games, Alec. And Gordon makes a point: there will be no fans, may not be any fans for any of these Old Firm games that we go a long way to deciding the season. We don't know. They'll certainly be on the 2nd of January. That is a big difference.
It is a big difference, but they have been coping with it. As I said, the Hibs game last week, Hibs kind of mounted a little bit of action going forward in the last 10, 15 minutes. And that's probably a game Rangers would have dropped points last year, last season, the last couple of seasons. But again, they've shown that steely mentality to get these results in the bag. Now, Gordon will remember with Sir Alex Ferguson, if we got the good results round about New Year, it always set you up for the run-in and for the rest of it. We did a kind of mini pre-season as well in Alex Ferguson's time. And in the years that we won the league, then there was always a really strong mentality going in for the run-in to the business end of the season. And I'm sure that's what Stevie Gerrard will be trying to emphasise for Rangers. But Neil, obviously playing that wee bit of catch-up is going to be extremely interesting. And I really look forward to this game more than any recent Old Firm game. It's going to be some battle, I feel.
Sounds like room for a cracker, God.
Yeah, it looks good because you're getting two teams who are coming out feeling good about themselves. That's for sure. And it's a big one. And lucky we can watch it on telly. But the thing is that I think you've got to hold your hands up to these two teams. That they've actually played very well the last 18 months. Seriously. And Rangers suffered end of last year. But as Alec will tell you, the football gods make you suffer before you actually win anything. So they've done well to come back. Because it comes as a surprise to the whole Scottish football, I think, after the disappointment of last year. And I think generally the Scottish public think Rangers gave it their best shot last year and they weren't good enough. So that's why you've got to hold your hands up and say, well done, Rangers. I think you've done terrifically well for getting over these disappointments. And well done to the players and coaching staff for doing that. And I really admire what you've done. But hope my team wins on Saturday.
Yeah, I knew that was going to be. I knew there was going to be a punchline immediately there.
I was going well there for a while.
Feeling
I just gave it away. I just can't give it away. I'm not like one of these impartial pundits. I can't do that.
Yeah, I know. Well, absolutely. Likewise for me. But yeah, it'll be a good game. Looking forward to it.
Are you going for Celtic as well, Alec? Good stuff, Alec. That is good.
No. The same thoughts as you. The blue team.
I hope both of your teams play well. Only one of them can win.
Yes, that's right.
Yes. Thank you very much, Matt. You just sit there and enjoy yourself. Good.
I will.
Yes, happy New Year, guys. Happy New Year.